Hey everybody, it's Jenna. We need to talk about Ironheart. I thought the show was a thoroughly pleasant surprise, one that feels a lot more complete and constructed in a satisfying way than some of the MCU's previous Disney Plus shows. It really did feel like reading a 6-issue comic miniseries that spins off and dives into another character's world. It was so fun seeing the MCU's Chicago, the VFX on the suit look incredible, and the performances are great across the board, especially Dominique's and my boy Alden Ehrenreich's. Now that all 6 episodes are out into the world, that is not what people are talking about though. It happened. After the fandom assuming he would be one of several mystery boxes revealed in WandaVision, only for there to never be plans for him in that show to begin with, after Spider-Man No Way Home adapted one of his more well-known modern comic moments without him, and after he was name-dropped in Agatha All Along, it finally happened. Mephisto showed up in Ironheart's 6th and final episode, revealing that he was the origin of Parker Robbins' enchanted hood, which he gave him alongside the tools to help him become obscenely wealthy in exchange for his soul. After Riri fought Parker, she was then presented with the same sort of meeting with Mephisto. He then offered to give her what she most desires, both the tools to make something iconic and the return of her dead best friend Natalie, and as we learn in the series' final moments, she seems to have accepted the deal. I do have to give the show a lot of credit for how they handled the reveal. Even though his role had been heavily rumored for 3 years at this point, further proof that it would be nice to have more surprises, the Dormammu red herring in earlier episodes worked on me, and I do think, especially within the narrative of the show itself, that this twist worked well for Riri as a character. This could have easily been an instance of a villain being brought in to gratuitously overshadow Riri's story, but we had already started to see her wrestle with darker feelings and not wanting to be defined as a stereotypical hero, which is very interesting territory to take the newer protagonist of a show like this. I do wish that this arc could have been teed up even more, but again, it doesn't feel like heresy that it happened to Riri. The problem is, it involves a character who, over the past 4 years, has morphed into a unique beast within the Marvel fandom. The speculation around when and how Mephisto might debut has been fun. Shout out to my friend Eric Fawcett, New Rockstars, for finally being vindicated all of these years later. And even then, most casual viewers probably weren't even aware of this speculation beyond the heyday of WandaVision, which makes Riri's reaction of,
"Is that supposed to mean something to me?"
even funnier. But I feel like in the process, ever since the WandaVision era, some fans turned that speculation into overconflation. It wasn't just that Mephisto could appear, it was that they almost demanded he appear to justify the existence of the magical corner of the multiverse saga, which mainly centered around women for what it's worth, and to then be fully unleashed as some sort of franchise-wide, Avengers-level big bad. He was not only a perpetual carrot dangled in front of them on a stick, but he was the juiciest, most forbidden carrot possible. And now they have it. So now what? Mephisto, to me, is in a class of characters who are viewed differently by the larger superhero fandom than they actually are in the comics. Fans immediately cast him as this massive big bad. In reality, he's a villain who is sort of a Swiss Army knife. He was created by Stan Lee and John Buscema in 1968's Silver Surfer #3 to fill the role of the stereotypical devil archetype, in ways both expansive and incredibly specific and character-driven, as evidenced by his beef with at least half a dozen different heroes. By the time he really rose to cult prominence in the late 80s, eventually getting his own 4-issue miniseries, it was not only because of the real-life satanic panic that was happening around him, but because the publishing structure of weekly comics led him to appear a lot, in a lot of different ways. As it stands right now, the main universe version of Mephisto has nearly double the number of appearances as DC's Darkseid, another character who became a forbidden carrot on a stick for another fandom. This is why, in a vacuum, I'm not unhappy with how Mephisto was used in Ironheart. It was in a micro way, focused more on the characters that he was making deals with, than on some sort of big plan that he might have down the line. But that hasn't stopped fans from trying to predict his plan down the line, wondering if his debut could lead to a number of projects that have been speculated but never remotely confirmed to be in the works: Children's Crusade, Champions/Young Avengers, Midnight Suns, or even a Scarlet Witch solo movie. If any of those projects did come to fruition with Mephisto as a part of them, I would not be mad at all, but I would also be shocked if that was the case, at least in the immediate future. The thing that always kind of frustrated me as the Mephisto speculation continued further and further into the multiverse saga is that we seem to be running out of immediate runway for him to be the kind of recurring thorn-in-your-side character that he is in the comics, much less as any sort of massive big bad that MCU fans have imagined him as. While plans might have been different in 2021 when Ironheart was being written, or even in the summer of 2022 when the series was first being filmed, the MCU is in a fundamentally different place in 2025. Again, just for a matter of perspective, Ironheart was being filmed before Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars were even officially announced at San Diego Comic-Con as the franchise's then destination, much less everything else that has happened since then. Even though there are still some noticeable noticeable gaps in the Marvel Studios schedule for the next few years and a few Disney Plus series along the way, the writing is on the wall that Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to be the primary main focus. We don't even have a clear indication of when and how Riri's cliffhanger will be followed up on in that status quo, which would realistically be the most logical place for Mephisto to return. And unless he joins the fray of hundreds of characters in the Avengers movies, which again does not seem impossible, but would be a whole other can of worms to introduce to the larger movie-going audience on top of everything else, or he pops up unannounced in a random Disney Plus series, we probably wouldn't have an opportunity to see him again for another few years. Even then, there is no telling what the franchise will look like post-Secret Wars, whether or not a Children's Crusade or Midnight Suns or a Scarlet Witch movie would even be in the cards anymore in that landscape, and whether or not Marvel Studios would even feel the need to check back in on Mephisto once the X-Men's roster of villains are at their disposal. Even as someone who wasn't super invested in the latter days of the Mephisto speculation, it is still wild to be sitting here talking about it having a concrete canonical resolution. But if, after all this time, that resolution ultimately leads him to join the ranks of Clea, Hercules, Eros, and the other characters that have become narrative dead ends in the MCU, then that is an even wilder outcome. How do you feel about Mephisto finally showing up in Ironheart? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you haven't already done so. Merch is available at the link in the description. As always, you can find me on social media at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, go read some comics.